Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Repurposing Show, second edition. Thank you for everybody for joining me. The weather down here isn't fantastic, but there's been such fantastic things happening over the last few days. Who cares? I'm joined today by my usual panel, whom I'll bring in a moment, but I just wanted to preface today's show with a couple of comments that will relate back to two of the discussions that we're going to have today, both of which will be about grassroots political events in communities and formation of new communities. And that is that the paradigm that we're in is in transition. And a lot of the planning that we've done around new communities and projects to fix the world over the last few years have been based sometimes on a short-term shift. A lot of the times it's looking at medium to longer-term shift, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And we've got a particular guest on the second half of the show who has built a plan to cater for pretty much anything that the paradigm throws at us, which is an example of excellent forward thinking. So we'll introduce that guest in the second half, but the first half of the show, we have some really exciting news for you, really exciting stuff. And I'll start by, I'll bring in the rest of the hosts, and that's Hope Moore. Good morning, Hope.
Good morning, Chris, and good evening to those in the U.S.
Yes. And, well, basically, I think I forgot to say hi, everybody, at the start of the show. So welcome to everybody, and thank you, Judy, for reminding me to start up the chat. We've had such an exciting little chat going on in the background just before the show. I forgot to hit the button on the chat, so thank you for that. And Reena, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Very good. Reena was unable to join us for the first show, but she's here now with a bullet. She's going to be discussing some of the things that she's been doing the last couple of years, and we've got a little thing to talk about before we speak to Reena, though. There's just one thing we have to let everybody know, but before we do that, we'll bring on Scott. How are you, Scott?
Very good. Hello, everyone. How's it all going?
We're good. Okay, now there's been a lot of events over the last few days. Most people have been very closely following the situation with Kiri in New Zealand, and events are unfolding, and there's nothing new to report just at the moment, but I expect the next couple of days we'll be hearing and discussing a lot more about that. But the other thing that some of you will be aware of was a little situation that arose last week when our co-host and Fix the World champion, Hope Moore, realized that she was seriously about to run out of some funds. And so she decided to put the call out and ask the universe for a bit of assistance. Now, I'll hand the story over to Hope, let her tell it herself. I think you're going to enjoy this, folks.
Thank you so much, Chris. I want to start from the beginning and let everybody know that I've been working on Fix the World for the last year now. And Fix the World it's a humanitarian cause and purpose. We focus on projects. We focus on helping others to help themselves. And we're so close. We've been so close to the verge of breaking through and providing basically the tools that so many people can use to fix this planet. And I've put so much work into it. I do have credentials. I have a lot of experience, and I've given myself for this cause for the past year. For those who don't know, I am a whistleblower, and a year ago I blew the whistle at my corporate job and lost my job as a result. So I've spent this past year just deciding to dedicate myself to doing something to help this planet and help the people on it and to stop the suffering. And we're so close. We're almost there. And I realized last week that I had a couple of events. The car broke down, and I was just wiped out of the last of my money. And I had a few days there where I was just at a very low point, trying to figure out why is this happening. I've done this work. all of this time, I've put my heart into it. I've put in 18-hour days. I've really put myself on the line. And I believe that the universe is an abundant place and that the universe will help and that the people will help. I believe in the people. I do this for the people. And so I had some long conversations with God, with Source, during those times. And I came to a choice point and a breaking point. And I put together a letter and I put it into a post. And I basically just kind of exposed my soul to the world. And I said, I need help. These are the numbers. I said, I have 12 days to come up with $2,000, or they're going to shut off my phone and my internet, and the world's going to lose hope, pretty much. And I said, I don't know what else to do, and I've done everything I can, and I'm just asking, can you help? And I gave people some options. I said, if you wanted to. You can go to we have a GoFundMe campaign. You can donate to the campaign. You could send me some money through a PayPal if you wanted. I'm willing to offer services. If you want, I can do consulting services. And I give a long list of all of the different skills and talents that I have that can be very valuable to a lot of people. And I'm like, sure, give me a call and I can help you write your business plan. I can talk to you about this, that, and the other, and I can help you. I'm willing to offer my services for a fee. And I just put it all out there, and it was a hard, challenging thing to do. The reason why I'm really revving up this story and letting you know from the beginning what had happened is because what occurred next, the message that is so important to get out to humanity right now is the energy that came in with this. So I put the post out there, and I spread it across all the networks, and I sent it to all of my friends, and it was posted for all the world to see. And I was asking for an emergency fund of $2,000 in 12 days. And within 24 hours, something like over 150 people donated money, and in 24 hours' time, I have brought in triple what I needed, triple, and they're still coming in. The donations are still coming in. But it's not necessarily the dollar figures or the money. It's the love energy that broke through. Yesterday, I was a bit of an emotional mess because the energy that came through from the people, the love was so powerful. It was so strong. It brought me to my knees. And I cried several times throughout the day. I'm still kind of there right now. I mean, I'm expressing this to everyone because I want you to know that I will never give up on humanity. And I asked for the people to help me, and they showed up again. The people, everyone who's listening, all the hosts on this call, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And if we need each other's help, I just want you to know I believe in you. I believe in you, and I will never give up on humanity. I don't care how bad it might look out there or how corrupt the world may seem, because that's the old paradigm. And the energy that's come through this, I was really paying attention to it. I mean, I'm sitting there looking at my email, and it's just donations are coming in faster than I could count, and I was just amazed. But the thing that was important was that there was a frequency with that giving energy, and a message came through to me from my inner self that really just told me this is the frequency that's going to flip this paradigm. So let me explain that to you just a little bit, because I want everyone to hear this. For those who have ears to hear, I want people to know that we are in a flipping stage. We have the old paradigm and the old way of doing things where so much was so out of balance, and it is now flipping. The energy is flipping, and there are certain frequencies that are causing that flip and that shift to happen, and it's happening right now. And what happened to me, when the people showed up and they helped me, this is one example. There's a giving energy. Some people have more wealth and they were able to donate larger amounts of money. Some people donated $5. And they said, I wish I had more, but this is what I can give. I want to be able to give. And some people thanked me. Thank you for asking for help. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to show you that I value you and what you're doing. Here's as much as I can give. It's only $5. It's only $10. But it was that act of giving of yourself to say, I recognize the value in my fellow human beings and the work that you're doing, and I want to give. And that love of actually taking 5 minutes out of your life and going and sitting down at the computer and clicking a couple of buttons to actually make that transaction happen, that's the frequency. That's the new energy. It's the frequency of love. And it doesn't have to be just for me. It can be for somebody, anybody. But if somebody needs help, act on that. Do something about it and act on that, and you will be participating in the frequency and the energy that's going to flip this entire planet around and flip the new paradigm into existence, and bring us that golden age that we've been promised and that we're all striving towards. The other thing, too, that I have to tell you is that the reason why I know this, why this was the frequency, is because I said I was a mess yesterday. I was crying through most of the day because when the love came through, and I'm struggling right now to keep my voice as steady as possible because the emotions are welling up in me again. When that love came through, it literally had me on my knees for most of the day. That love power and that frequency was stronger than any world war, stronger than any negative energy out there. It was so powerful, and it was just with me in this one situation. When this happens across the planet, it is the kind of power that could transport the entire planet to another dimension. I felt it. I saw it. I know it. So that's a little bit of my story of what happened. It's only been a day. It's been one day. And I have been paying very close attention to the energies that have been coming through this experience. So many lessons have come through. I feel like I saw the face of God, which is Source. And it was just, I'm hoping that I'm doing this amazing energy some justice by trying to put it into humble human words, but it's just so beautiful on the other side of this, and we can all partake in making the decision. Yes, I want to emit that frequency. I want to join in and emit that frequency in any way that I can.
Hope, I spoke with you yesterday, and you were just floating about 3 feet above the ground. It was amazing. Because during last week, we had another conversation. You were concerned about it, and you told me what you're going to do, and wow, this is what happened. But you also yesterday, and you've probably forgotten this, you gave me a fantastic description of the way energy flows around, and you used the analogy of a lake, and I think that's worthwhile putting out there.
Oh, yes, I would love to put that out there. And if anybody, I posted this on my blog, I think it was last week or the week before. I was basically telling people, we're coming into a state of abundance. There's going to be abundance and prosperity on this planet, and that's going to change things. And it's a good idea to plan your prosperity now and to plan who you're going to give to. Plan your giving along with your plans for prosperity. I made some suggestions. One suggestion was, pick a percentage of your prosperity and promise yourself that you're going to give that to someone or something or some cause that you believe in to help others. And I got a couple of questions that people were saying, well, I don't understand. If everyone on this planet is going to have prosperity and have what they need, then why should we give if everyone already has what they need? So I went a little bit deeper into this, and I looked to nature for the answers to these things. Nature can tell us so much, and In this analogy, let's look at a living lake. A living lake has water going into it from rainwater or snow melting. There's water going into a lake. And it also has an outlet where the water goes out of the lake and goes into another body of water. But there's water in, there's water out. And basically, if we look at money, right now, money is the representation of energy. That's truly what it is. And that's what society has put onto it. And so it's energy, and energy flows. Energy has movement, and a current, which is why we call it currency, that flows and has movement. It's supposed to flow in and flow out. And when you have that currency, that lake has life in it. There's so much life that can grow in that lake. The water is crystal clear. There's oxygen. There's everything you need. Now let's compare that to a stagnant pool or a stagnant pond where there's only water coming in, such as snow melts or there's rainwater and it all collects into a pond, but there's no outlet. There's no water going out. That water is murky, and very little life can live there. And usually the only kind of life that can breed in a stagnant pond are, pests and mosquitoes and bugs and that sort of thing. And they smell really, really bad. And the only time the water ever leaves that stagnant pond is through evaporation, which just, concentrates the bio filth, I think is what they might call it, that makes it smell so bad. So the encouragement here is that you should plan giving to somebody else, even if it's just a small percentage of your energy, because that's what's going to turn you and your energy into a living lake and to keep you from being a stagnant pond. And I've always personally practiced this in my life. Anytime I have a little bit of extra money or extra time or whatever it is that I value as energy, I try to make sure I give that selflessly to someone else, because I understand that I want to keep my area of energy a living lake as a representation and not a stagnant pond. So that's in a post that I put out, and a lot of people really resonated with that, and they really understood it. So I hope that I did some justice in sharing that, and I hope that resonates with everybody else as well.
Yeah, if I can add on to that one, Hope.
Please do. It's a beautiful way of doing that.
One of the things that a lot of people don't have is the knowledge of what's going on and what has happened. So, for example, we might all when we come into this prosperity, without the knowledge of what's happened and how we got to where we're at, it's one hell of a shock to a lot of people. And if we can impart some of that knowledge of what's happened and help people to go, oh, okay, yeah, that's what happened. So in that case, I can do this with my new prosperity, and it's sharing that part of the paradigm change that's coming or that we're in the middle of. And I suppose that's really what we're doing right now. And sorry, go on, Chris.
That's okay. No, I'll let you finish, Scott.
No, I was just going to bounce back to that Fix the World project. That's one of the manifestations of exactly that. So that's the beauty of the work Hope's done there.
Reena, did you want to put in your
I just
thoughts?
wanted to add that even without this the prosperity and the RV funds and that kind of stuff, even without that, I mean, you can see clearly an example through Hope of giving, but not necessarily funds, not necessarily cash or money, or what most people would identify as value. And I mean, how can you put a price on the work that Hope's done, or the work that Scott's done, or in fact the work that thousands of people, hundreds, millions of people around the world do? How can you put a value on that? I mean, that itself is invaluable.
If you look at the last 6 months and the work that's been done worldwide, even if you just looked at the situation generated by the work of the One People's Public Trust that's morphed into the movement of the One People, ignoring everything else going on in the alternate media, look at how many human hours have gone into that. If you can't put a figure to that, it's just an enormous value, whether you want to represent it with money or not, and it was all given out of sheer goodwill and a desire to fix the world.
Yeah, no one's on the payroll for that one.
No one's been on the payroll. All the work
exactly.
Scott's done, all the work Reena's done, which we'll be talking about shortly, all the work Hope's done, everybody is just working their fingers to the bone, literally, getting the information out there, spreading the word, developing networks, talking about creating communities, talking about solving legal problems, talking about shifting the financial system, acting upon it. You know, the system's been peppered with courtesy notices from one end to the other. They know exactly what we want to do. And, you know, there is no value you can put on that. It's just extraordinary. And that is only going to grow. Okay?
Absolutely.
It's not going to go backwards.
And that also goes towards, you know, the concept of you are the value. I mean, there is a absolutely abundantly clear example of what it means when we say you are the value. You are the value. None of these systems work without you. Exactly. None of these systems could even exist without you. You are the value.
Now, the most interesting thing, too, that comes out of this is that the universe responded, but it didn't just respond with only what Hope apparently needed for her immediate problem. It actually addressed the bigger problem of what is it that she can do next to keep the Fix the World project moving forward. And the best thing Hope could do next is start traveling and meeting the people she's been working with, and in every location as much as possible, helping them to pull together their resources, their ideas, their people to begin, you know, real work at community level. And guess what, folks? She may well be able to do that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Hope, but if we can get that figure up a bit more, you'll be able to travel and start doing that as well.
Absolutely. And that's what I would like to do. I spend hours on Skype calls, you know, and I'm in Massachusetts right now in the United States, but there's so much more that can be done in person. I've spoken to so many people throughout the world, and I would really like to take this entire initiative of fixing the world and bringing people together on these projects, that, you know, real tangible projects that are going to give us free energy and clean up the environment and grow food for whole communities of people and so much more. I'd like to be able to travel and meet with these individuals and spread the awareness of this initiative, because it really is for all of us. And I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to pick up and live out of a suitcase for however long I need to. I'm completely free to do it. I'm mobile. I can bring my laptop with me. So I'm ready to just get up and go around the world if the people want Hope to come.
That's the idea, and especially a shout out to Australians and New Zealanders, because if we can get this going just a bit more, that world tour could well start off with a meeting with us in Australia and New Zealand at Lake Conjola in the middle of August, that we're going to be talking about in about 2 minutes from now, which would be absolutely fantastic, because it would just kick off the Hope Girl World Tour, as I like to call it.
I love that.
Exactly. And, you know, as Reena said before too, it's not just about, you know, the current societal version of what is value. It's not just about the money. I can absolutely guarantee that Hope will have to pay very little accommodation and transfer when she travels, because people will be ready, willing and able to make that happen for her, which means she'll be able to fly further and longer and do more.
Yeah. Chris, before moving on to our Lake Conjola story,
mm-hmm.
I was just going to comment on that action going on over in New Zealand with the Kiri.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think one of the most exciting things that's come out of that is, again, the speed at which people have taken up and gone and listened to that hour and a bit long interview and spread it around the world like wildfire. I'm getting that story turning in the inbox from multiple sources, which is an indicator that people are going, oh, you beauty, I'm following this one.
Yeah. The Pleiadian group that Julian Wells communicates with, they have a name for the energy, and some of you will be aware of this. They call it the One People energy. And when they first noticed it and pointed it out to Julian, they said it was one of the most effective, virile, easily transferable, uncorruptible energies they'd ever observed on this planet. And we're seeing it really starting to kick in now, and in real terms on the ground, with things like the support that Kiri's getting, support that Hope's getting, the support that Bob Wright got when he went to Morocco, and there's other examples out there as well. It's something that it's the thing that will sweep this planet. It's the thing that will trigger the abundance that will bring us into this new age, and it simply requires us exerting our free will, making a choice to step into something new, and not try and in no way try to fix the old. We want to create the new, ultimately, and that energetic aspect that Scott's talked about and Hope and Reena's talked about is probably one of the best ways to think of it, because if you think of things at an energetic level, there's no geopolitics, there's no division, there's nothing that can't be touched, cannot be touched.
And I love that uncorruptible aspect of that.
Yeah, it's an incredibly pure form of energy. And I've noticed this with the term the One People. You can introduce that concept to people in conversation, and it cuts through the programming, it cuts through the social divides, political divides, all the divides that have been used to essentially weaken us and make the whole situation controllable for so long. But now we're seeing that. And once you see something, you can't unsee it. So this is what's swelling up and developing now, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And thank you, Hope, for going through your story and sharing that with us. It's absolutely brilliant. And again,
yeah, thanks, Hope.
Yeah, if you've not yet donated, just a small donation to Hope's website. Look up her blog. There's a couple of ways of doing it. Would be absolutely brilliant, and pass it around to people, because what Hope's movement around the planet will do is swell and grow the energy, that One People energy, everywhere she goes, and that's the best thing that can happen at this point, because the amount of energy that happens from the One People's meetings that we have here once a month, that's a wonderful energy to be in, and everyone, it builds up and everyone takes it home with them, spreads it further.
What really stood out for me, and I don't know if the listeners felt this, but I could actually feel the energy, and I'm guessing that was probably only a taste of what, and a very, very small taste of that powerful energy that Hope was feeling, and that she probably still is, because I tell you what, it was coming across the airwaves, because I could certainly feel it. I don't know about you guys or the listeners, but I could certainly feel it, and if that is only a taste of the full extent of what she's been experiencing and the adventure and the ride that she's been on in the last 24 hours, I can only imagine. I can only imagine what it was like.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to segue from here into the event that we started talking about last week, but which is basically coming into focus now, and that's the One People's Ascended Living event at Lake Conjola, New South Wales, on the 17th and 18th, actually the 16th, 17th and 18th of August. That's the destination we'd like to get Hope to, numero uno. It's a beautiful property up in New South Wales. I have to actually pull in the people we're going to talk to, the owners of the property who put this idea forward, and they are mobile at the moment. So I'm going to, I'll just check to see what Joe had to say. Yes, okay. So they're in Cooma. They're actually on the road. So we'll pull them in. We'll be speaking to Joe and Vanessa Bragg.
Good morning.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
We there?
Yes. Can you hear us, Joe?
Yep.
Excellent. Vanessa, is Vanessa with you?
Yes, I'm here too, Chris. Morning, listeners.
Good morning, everybody.
Very good. Have you been listening in?
Yes. Yep.
Yes, excellent. Great news about Hope Girl.
Yeah, excellent. Very exciting.
Exciting stuff. So at this stage, we've got some information loaded up on the website that people can have a look at, and I'm about to post the link on the chat for the initial page that's been put up on the website. And I've just been notified there'll be an update to go on the website a bit later today with a bit more detail. But if you want to see the initial details, we've got posted. They're up there. And I just wondered, Joe and Vanessa, how your preparations and thoughts are developing about what will be happening that weekend.
Yeah, going pretty well. Seeing we've been travelling the car for a few days. The only downside was our accommodation had absolutely zero mobile coverage or internet coverage, so we had to just be for a few days.
Well, that happens, but also in that space you tend to come up with really, really good things that you might not have thought of if you were cluttered up by outside things attracting your attention.
Well, and that's true, because one of the things that has come up over the last few days was, as we saw a little bit of the itinerary forming for this gathering of the One People, I particularly started to see that it could be a talk fest, and I steered clear of talk fest, and I understand there's reason and we need to talk to get it out, but along the lines of what Hope's been experienced over the last few days, I said to Joe very strongly that the talk fest is fine, but my place in this weekend will be to hold the space energetically for us to continue to come back to eternal essence. So people who are joining us can come for the discussion and kind of learn and grow on that 3D level of really understanding how it might implicate their lives or how they might do and be in that space. But it'll also be a process of, experiencing everyone's togetherness as one in the energetics of eternal essence, that we are, focusing back into the fact of who we are in this moment, in this space, together as a collective. And my analogy, it's interesting that, Hope would use the analogy of the lake, and all I could think of was Lake Conjola, and Lake Conjola is an open lake, and it does get clogged up as the sand flows through in, the tides and the seasons and what have you, and it does do that movement, and it does flow sometimes, and sometimes it sits stagnant, and it is very important. I would come back to the analogy that the human heart is exactly the same. It's not a closed organ. It generates the in and the out throughout the body, and it's that pumping life force that we can't just say, we'll just get it all in and we won't let it out. It needs to also flow out to create an energy. One of the things I said to Joe yesterday afternoon was, I know that there's donate buttons on everyone's website, and I, that idea of helping, supporting, let's do this together. That the costing of this weekend is coming to be as a result of, working it out as a cost-effective and only at cost. So we're not looking to make money out of it ourselves, but we are looking to just create it as a space or environment for us all to be together in that space. But I also said at the end of that weekend, I feel it's really important to hand, I don't know what it is, a bag, a bowl or something. And I said to Joe, we need to give people the opportunity to give. And even if that's only that they want to give a poem, or they want to give a message, or they found a crystal or a feather or anything that they need and feel that need to exchange on a level, I said to Joe, we need to give that at the end of the weekend. So it's really interesting. Once you tap into working together as a collective, and I've experienced this for many, many years, you the group of people, and in this just immediate kind of, conversation with even Hope and Chris and us, and that we will be experiencing likenesses throughout the universe, throughout the globe. So we've had an experience of that giving, receiving a message that's come in on that same way that Hope has experienced it on the other side of the globe. So, there's great things are coming together for 3 days particularly, and just being together in a space of oneness where we are, we are still physical beings. We will tap in and we'll go physical, and then it'll be, hang on a minute, let's come back to centering back into that flow that comes in and out of the heart and the essence of who we are, and remember who we are as a collective. So that will be my main energetic intention for the weekend. Joe went to the One People's meeting held in Sydney through the week, and he came back just saying, a small group gathering, but just so profoundly fantastic to connect with people who are all on the same journey, to hear what's led them to here, to hear what they're thinking now and where they're taking, and then to hear what they're actually feeling now, because the feelings seem to be the driving force, and that's where you're tapping into that next dimensional growth level. And I believe what Hope says, we're there, within a heartbeat, we're there, and we just need these opportunities to come together.
Yeah. Very important that it's as much the being as the doing, and I certainly think there'll be plenty of doing. There's every opportunity here for us to give Joe and Vanessa the extra bit of help that they need to get the rest of their buildings completed, and then the complex will have about 19 different residences where people can stay, and immediately they come online, you can establish a permanent community. And that is a very key thing.
I have to say something for Joe and Vanessa also. I have met people who have thanked me for giving them the opportunity to give. So it's so important to just present that opportunity, because there's a receiving that happens when you're able to give to someone that you believe in. So it's quite amazing how the energy flows back and forth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Joe and Vanessa, if it's not too much, technically, could you mute when you're not speaking?
Yep.
Great. Excellent. That's okay. I was getting one of those echoes. It was quite hard to speak over. But look, I'm just glancing through the venue, the itinerary that they've got planned, and it's going to be great fun. There is a bit of entertainment here and there, and it turns out that one of the organisers from the Brisbane group was a caterer, so there's already a food menu happening, and it looks like Joe has a boat, because he's offering a little quick flip around the lake at one point.
Yeah, we've got a party boat, pontoon boat, so we can take a reasonable number out. So, and once again, it's all we're doing is, wanting to cover the costs of the food and those bits. So it's not going to be by any means an expensive weekend. It'll just be a lot of fun and a lot of doing.
Yeah, and one of the things about it is it will establish that location in people's minds, and they'll be able to pass that energy on to others. And what we're aiming for, is to have a small but very active community there permanently, with hopefully a large number of people flowing through on a regular basis, all learning about how to set up these sorts of communities, and many other things as well, everything from energy healing through to practical stuff. Joe's actually a farmer, and just in my short conversations with him, there isn't much he hasn't built or done. So I think anyone who's coming there looking for practical hints about how to actually do things, I think they'll find, between Joe and everyone else that turns up, it'll be an absolute goldmine of information.
Yeah, and I think anybody that hasn't seen it, that the new forum there, the Energy Room chat, is going to be very interesting for a lot of us, because I've got to go back and download a heap of information that's already come through. Some exciting things happening all the way around. But and that's what has always been the vision, to try to get the practical side of it happening. And because we're sort of at that early stage, it'll be great. People can be as involved as they want to be in, bringing that together, but then getting the next one happening, and that whole satellite way of doing it. And I think it's just really exciting all the way around.
It is. Now, Joe and Vanessa, thanks very much for dropping in. We will keep moving, because we have to spend some time speaking to Reena before the hour. Is there anything else you wanted to leave us with before you go?
No, it's mainly just getting, if people are interested in coming, so we can start starting that conversation of what sort of accommodation, how we're going to set out some of the cabins, because most of them don't have a lot in them at the moment, so we're getting things organised.
And if people, we've actually set up just a new Skype address, Opal Global Village is the Skype address. So if people want to connect in on that as just a means of creating a conversation over the coming weeks, then by all means, that's an open Skype room, Skype address to kind of connect in and gather names and so that we can keep people informed as well.
And Scott from up at the top group on the Gold Coast, he's been, as you can see, very active with the itinerary and all of that. So there's a lot happening. His little take on it is the road to Sirocco, and that's just a take on the Morocco. But I think that energy, I think it's a good take. So calling it one Lake Conjola, but it's whoever wants to come on that road to Sirocco and indulge in that energy and immerse. I think is, you can hear what's happened to all the other hosts that were lucky enough to get to Morocco. I think it's, very similar for those, just what you get out of being able to come together.
Yeah. Sirocco, I view that as kind of southern Morocco, if you will.
Yeah, that was his take.
That was his take, yes. Okay, the website they have up and running, it's just a simple one-pager, so you can put in a contact request and register your interest. It's www.opalglobalvillage, all one word, .com, or you can contact by email on life@, that's LIFE, @opalglobalvillage.com. As soon as you can, if you want to come on down, let them know about your interest and about how many people and whatever other details they need, and we'll get this show on the road. So Joe and Vanessa, thank you very much for dropping in, and I'm sure we'll be speaking to you soon.
All right, thank you, and we'll have a heap more photos up too. I'm on my way home to do that now.
Great.
Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye for now. Okay, well that's a big block of information, but we've got one more thing to get through before the hour, after which we're going to be talking with a representative of a really interesting community that's has been setting up for over a decade in the United States at a really, really professional level. We'll be talking to those guys. But at the moment, we're going to have a chat to Reena Iliades. Unless Hope or Scott, or Reena, do you have any final thoughts on the New South Wales event? Anything you wanted to add into before we move on?
It's one of those things where I'd love to be doing the teleportation over there.
Well, Scott, I was hoping you'd drive your car over.
It's 4,000 Ks.
At light speed in that thing. Light speed. Never mind.
I have to say that today I had a vision of being there, so I know I'm going to be there. I know that it's going to happen, and I want to say also that when groups of people get together, that energy that is created, it doesn't just affect the people that are getting together in that group. It creates like a vortex of energy that spreads out to everyone around as well. So I see that happening, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the strawberry patch effect as well, because it'll flow on to the community that Scott and Cherie would like to set up in Queensland, and the one that Jason is setting up in New South Wales, in Tasmania, and there are others here. As Andrew Baxter, John Van Newton, several other people. They all want to set up various communities with various aspects to them, but the underlying aspect is always that it's a contributory community where everyone is working for the greater good of that community. Works for me. But speaking of communities, we now need to introduce everybody a little bit to our fourth host, Reena Iliades. And just to preface my experience with Reena, I actually was introduced to Reena at around about February, where we held a meeting in southern Victoria, in Geelong, and it was hosted by a very active young man called Emilio Testa, who's running the show for Lisa called The Remembering. He's, although he's handed over to a couple of other hosts at the moment because he's got some work commitments on the time the show's supposed to run. But Emilio ran a meeting down in Geelong, and we were there for a couple of days, met some really amazing people, including Max Egan and Anne Bressington and a bunch of other people that had come from some distance. And it was essentially about issues surrounding the work of the One People's Public Trust and what the filings meant and how it might all fall out and what did the new governance mean and how would we do it. And Reena was there, so I was able to meet Reena and spend quite a bit of time talking with her about what she's been doing in the suburbs of Melbourne. Now, we'll also hopefully have some time with Anne Bressington next week. We're trying to pull that off for the next meeting. She's an actual sitting politician in the South Australian state government of this country, and she is completely aware of Agenda 21, the OPPT, the foreclosures, all of it. And she's done numerous interviews, including with Vlad in Croatia. I hope I got the right country there, Vlad. And she is very outspoken and very with it. And interestingly enough, when we asked her how much of the current government structure would you keep in the new paradigm, she replied without hesitation, none. Not one piece. So she has a very specific view on that, which we'll no doubt hear next week. But Reena outlined what she'd been doing when we met, which is a campaign to reveal the fact that the council in the area where she lives were completely corrupt, essentially making up rules as they went along, and she'd actually made a movie at that point called Pirates of the Suburbs, which received a fair bit of attention, and she's just in the process of uploading Pirates of the Suburbs Part 2 as we speak. So a belated welcome, Reena.
Thank you, Chris. Wow, that was an introduction.
No, it's a pleasure, Reena. You've got so much energy. Reena has several young children, a husband and a business, and very little sleep, from what I can see.
That's about right. Yeah, what you were saying with what Anne said about Anne Bressington, about what would you keep of the old system. And she's absolutely right when she says nothing. You know, what part of the system would you keep? None of it. It is totally and utterly beyond repair. I mean, I think the filings, first off, from Opt, which is now the One People, I think prove that. And certainly through my experience and the journey that I've been on, you know, particularly in the last 8 months or so, convinces me that there's absolutely nothing that is, you know, recoverable from the old system. It is definitely beyond repair. It's like one of those, I mean, it kind of started out, if I could give you like a sort of an example, it's a bit like, you know, buying a house and you think, you know, it's old, it needs a bit of repair, maybe I could renovate it. And the more you dig and the more you peel back the layers, the more you find out how much work it needs and how much energy it needs. And, you know, how much rot has set in to the extent that it's no longer feasible to even repair it. And that's what I've found.
And how much value a wrecking ball would be.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, but, you know, you can't just take away a system that people know without replacing it with something that they can see works and already has worked to a great extent. And so that's why I was, you know, really drawn to the OPPT and particularly the CVAX, because I was actually working on something very similar to that. And so, yeah, so that's kind of how I got involved with OPPT. And that first meeting with us back in February, that was certainly interesting. And we were, well, for me anyway, I'm speaking for myself when I say this, I was pretty new to it all. I understood the concept completely, simply because I had been saying for quite a few months prior to this, because I'd looked into I'd studied the Constitution, I studied, you know, common law, trust law, you know, the straw man concept, the free man concept, and even, you know, just recently with yourself, manor houses and chancellery courts and all that kind of stuff. And I just got to a point where I said, hang on, who made up all these laws? Who said, like, take our Constitution, for instance. I wasn't even born, for crying out loud, when it was created. Where was my say in how I get to live my life in this natural trust? I mean, this natural trust, everyone is supposedly meant to share in equally. And so where's my equal access to the natural trust? And who is this person that we call the Queen that somehow gives me the right to be and do? I already have that right. I was born with it. I don't need someone to grant it to me. And the only person that can grant it or deny it is my Creator. And so that was the question that I was asking, particularly when I was studying the Constitution. That was the question. I know that she's supposedly the supreme sovereign of the Constitution. But where's my wet ink signature giving her permission to essentially govern the natural trust?
Yeah, who put her in charge?
Exactly.
Who made her the boss of us? The people who did it were distant relatives of hers long dead, who were essentially the most brutal and successful warlords of their day. So it was always government by force. It was never anything else. It's just we've got a shinier cage, a bit of free beer and a lot of TV in this particular version of slavery.
And football.
And a lot, yeah,
football. Every September.
Lots of sports and lots of entertainment news. Reena, the first movie you made was actually as a result of going to a council meeting and simply filming and finding that they were very, very unhappy with you for doing it. And your question to them was, well, where's the law that says I can't film in a council meeting where I'm entitled to be there as a member of the public?
Yeah, and that's kind of how this whole sort of, new rabbit hole kind of started. And before I go into the story of how that all sort of came about, what I had discovered is that there's actually, the penny had dropped at some point, and I realised that this top-down control is actually sort of played out on a local level. So if they can control people on a very local level, and they do it in such a way, which I'll explain in a moment, but they do it in such a way that they make it very difficult for the people in local council to sort of back out of what they're doing. And by the time they realise what they're doing and what they're a part of, it's too late for them because they're already in so deep that they can't pull out any longer. So, in for a penny, in for a pound kind of attitude sets in at some point. And then it's all bad news from there on in. And that's how the top-down control is actually exercised.
Yeah, there's so many people that are caught up in this. And we discussed this on the One People show and the Collective Imagination show, so probably don't need to go into a lot of detail there except to say that the system appears to support the local councils making up rules as they go along. And if the council find them difficult to enforce, they can make uniformed enforcers appear out of thin air to make sure that their edicts actually are carried out. And you saw that happen firsthand at one stage not too long ago.
Yeah, that's right. But I think the point I was trying to make from that is that in a lot of ways the people that run local councils and the councillors and all those people in there, they're as much a victim of the system as anyone else that bears the brunt of that system, in the sense that they give them enough rope to hang themselves. And what I mean by that is that they put enough, what's the right word? They put enough temptation in front of them that they know, human nature being what it is, that they will take advantage of that, and then they hold that against them.
Yeah, they work that all throughout the entire system, as you said. And as you say, they are literally victims of the system per se. But
yeah, they are.
The issue is, how do we fix that system? Well, we don't fix that system. We create a new one. And we've got about 4 or 5 minutes before the break. Do you want to describe, because you have plans to actually educate the communities in your local area as much as possible, to the point where people are ready to actually create their own people's council.
That's right. So to create a council or a community group that essentially parallels their existing council, and there already are systems in place that do that. And so what we need to do is utilise, what we have, the resources that we have available. And if we do that, it's an introduction, I guess, to what CVACs actually are, but at a level that, people can understand. It's already a system that they're dealing with, so it's a system that they understand. So it's kind of like a soft introduction almost to CVACs to help people, actually experience the self-empowerment that comes from running their own communities. Because the way that the system has been run has disempowered people to the extent that they believe that they're unable to do anything, without the assistance of government.
Yes.
Well, when we were sitting around in caves, around campfires, and we wanted to go to the next cave or to the next settlement, we didn't wait and sit around for a government to build a road to it.
Oh, and you need a permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or get a permit from the chief to go.
And there has to be a guy in a white coat and a clipboard signing off on it.
Yeah. And I think probably the best example of that, I remember it was probably at least a year ago, because I think the Occupy movement is celebrating its second year now. And it was around the time that the Occupy movement was celebrating its first year. And there was a little story, and it proved to me one thing, that when it's necessary, that people will actually come together and help each other with or without the assistance of government. And what had happened was a tornado had ripped through, I think it was New York. Don't quote me on that. I can't. I'm sure some of the listeners in the US will be able to tell me where that actually occurred. But what happened was, the area that it occurred was not very far from an area that the Occupy movement was in, and there were hundreds of people camped out in a park somewhere. And what happened is those people that had lost their property or homes, or had severe damage, the people at the Occupy movement that were camped there are the ones that actually housed and assisted them and fed them and cooked for them and looked after them and let them sleep in their tents and all sorts of stuff. And in the end, what had happened was that even the police themselves said that without those people at the Occupy movement having been there and having assisted all those people, there is no way that they would have had far more people that were sick or injured, and probably would have, who knows, been exposed to the elements and that kind of thing. So what it shows is that as a community of individual beings, we don't need a government to tell us that we need to help our neighbour. We will do that instinctively.
Exactly.
So that's what that story there proved to me.
You don't have to dig very far amongst the stories of humankind to find examples of that all over the place. But it somehow falls away when it comes to structuring the community to actually enable that to happen. A lot of the stuff that seems to go on is counter to that happening. The structure wants to insert itself between us and our neighbour. Another form of division, really. It's just just isolating us in a really opportunistic manner. One of the things we'll be talking to Anne Bressington about is exactly how the agenda is being moved from the original legislation in the UN down to community level on the ground, in the sense of councils being given free rein to over-regulate, to actually control far more closely exactly what's going on in these, right in front of our door, right in our own streets. And here we are having these discussions about setting up our own communities exactly around where we live. So in essence, we've come to the point where where they are directly trying to control our daily lives in our homes, and we're actually striving to create new communities in the same place. And I find that amazingly synchronistic, and I know what the outcome's going to be, and it's not looking good for them at this point.
They'll become irrelevant, and that's the whole point. That's exactly what we'd like to aim to start giving. Well, I think the first step is education, and so we need to provide some basic tools for people and some basic understanding. And see, the thing is, you can understand the Constitution, you can understand common law, trust law, the straw man, you can understand all of those things, but if you don't know who you are, then none of that means anything. You can quote whatever you want verbatim from the Constitution, which, there's lots of brilliant people that, know all this stuff. I don't know how they retain so much information. They could tell you what page it's on too. And yet none of that means anything if you don't know who you are.
Yes, precisely. Everything builds upon that at this stage. Reena, thank you very much for that.
Absolutely welcome.
We'll be exploring a bit more of your thoughts and material as time goes on. Have a look on YouTube. The new movie you're putting out is called Pirates of the Suburbs Part 2. Have I got that correct?
Yeah, it's already up. It's Pirates of the Suburbs 2. And that's on my YouTube channel at the moment.
Which is called?
I think it's just my name, Reena Iliadis.
Yeah, we'll just spell that for you. No, it's just one L, isn't it? It's
one L, yeah.
I-L-I. Yep,
I-L-I-A-D-E-S. But if you just Google Pirates of the Suburbs or YouTube Pirates of the Suburbs, you'll see it come up.
Great stuff. Okay, folks, time for a break. And after the break, we're going to be talking to a gentleman from the United States who's a representative. He's actually the project manager for quite a large project called Eduan. And his name is Don Earl Hunt, Senior, and he'll be joining us after the break for a fairly detailed discussion about that particular organisation's objectives and growth. So now, moving on with our agenda for today, I've pulled in Holly Tucker for a couple of reasons, actually. Holly's going to give us a quick update on some things on the IUV website that she wants to draw our attention to. Are you there, Holly?
I am, Chris.
Good. Welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you and BZ for all the work you do on that website. It's phenomenal, the amount of energy and information that you've spread through that.
Well, I have to say it's a privilege. It's truly a privilege. We've been blessed to try to represent the one people since the website launched, and we appreciate all of those who support us in your viewership. Chris, before I forget, I wanted to congratulate you on your show.
Well, thank you. And I'll also spread that amongst my co-hosts too, because this is most definitely another community effort.
It's a team effort, absolutely. That's very much been the case with the IUV website. BZ and I came together back in February and started conceptualizing the site. And very early on, we decided that it was important to have a news source as part of the IUV website. And, it's been a little over a week since we finally launched it. It's called the Nova Earth News, and you can access it via the IUV homepage under the Media News tab. And the concept was to try and offer inspirational stories that demonstrated being and doing all around the planet. These are positive, inspirational stories that demonstrate enlightened living, enlightened loving, laughing, playing, imagining. So I know for me, I can't watch news that's offered to me on mainstream media and much of the internet because it seems to lack that positive source of enlightenment. So The idea was to try to answer the call for what ascended living really looked like.
That's something that we should all take a look at, Holly, and just avail ourselves of that, because as you say, if you want disinformation and fear porn, you can find that everywhere you look. But the little nuggets, I can hear Scott piping up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Holly, hi, Scott here. Yeah, absolutely chuffed to see that. That's awesome. There was a little quote that was on Vinnie Eastwood's bio, and he's another guy who's pumping out some good stories on what's really going on in the world with his show, Vinnie Eastwood show. But the thing that sparked my memory on that was he said, don't complain about the media not doing their job, just replace them. And what you've just done there is an element of replacing them.
That's a great point, Scott. That's pretty much been the MO of most of the eternal essence involved with the IUV and the One People. That's truly been our goal: is don't focus on the negative, focus on the positive. Don't look at the glass half empty, but look at the glass half full. Don't complain about what isn't, but talk about what is.
Exactly. In fact, if you look at the massive amount of radio shows, and we've got TV shows starting to come up on the alternate media, this is the new media. Lisa's basically got shows running every day on the 5D Media Network, and there are many other examples of people doing the same thing. It is the new media. It is what's going to replace the old.
I completely agree with you. And what I'd like to also mention is just as with the IUV.com site, where we're representing the One People, so we ask that you submit your stories that you think others would appreciate, such as the Nova Earth News motto, in that we want to know about your ideas for news, ideas that you think are important. So if you go to the site, you'll see an opportunity on the front cover to submit your stories, your news story ideas. We'd very much be interested in your thoughts in that regard, because it is your news source.
Indeed. And Holly, while we've got you here, thank you for that. First of all, we need to keep people's attention drawn to the resources that are being built. While we have you here, you're actually going to be part of the celebrations in New South Wales at Lake Conjola in August. You've actually pretty much committed to coming already, I gather. So we're going to get to meet you in person.
Well, it's truly been a synchronistic moment, having heard Trevor Osborne on the One People show, and yours as well, the Repurposing show. He's on a mission to establish a simulation center, a test bed, if you will, of what enlightened living really looks like. And the idea behind this is really to promote advanced technology, advanced agriculture, and ascended mindfulness. And the only way to really do that is set up a demonstration center where people can learn and play. And so it was beautiful synchronicity in Trevor and I coming together, because my idea was, let's document this. The vision is there. This vision needs to be shared with others. And from the moment of conception of the idea of creating what he calls harmony centers, let's capture these moments, let's document these moments and present it, on the IUV.com site, so that people can follow this important process. because once we move from design to development, we take the idea into implementation phase. These are the action steps that many others are going to want to know how to implement in their own communities. So I put that out there as an offering to help document and capture, and the invitation was there and the funds to do so. It all was just beautiful synchronicity, and that's how it works, as Hope knows.
Yeah, the opportunity to document it from its very early stages is brilliant. And what's really good is that we seem to have one particular location, like Lake Conjola. I nearly got it wrong, Reena. It's Lake Conjola. That's so close to being ready to house a decent population of people that it's just not funny. Yet at the same time, we've got communities in at least 2 other locations in Australia that are going to fire up pretty much from the beginning, and we'll have a centre of operations to work from, but we'll also be able to directly observe communities growing from that seed. And the documentation of that will be fantastic.
And blessings to Joe and Vanessa for stepping up, because they're really pioneers in this effort, as is Trevor. And a lot of people are going to be watching, so we want to be sure to capture the moment and present it to the one people so that it can be replicated.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah, look, I'll give you another great example of how documentation helps so much. If you're interested in free energy, as an example, go off to a little YouTube channel called Zero Fossil Fuel. And Zero Fossil Fuel lives in the east of the United States. He's actually a radio engineer, as in a two-way radio engineer of some kind. Loves to do projects in his shed, but he's been documenting it for years, and he's got projects going back. HHO projects, that's hydrogen oxygen out of water. He's worked on a magnet motor. He's just built a rocket mass heater for his little workshop. And what he does is so simple. It's not really that much. He just puts on a camera and he talks and he just shows his projects. And we need to seed that. He's inspired a huge number of people around the world. He's got a huge viewership simply because he just documents his stuff. So Holly, 4 marks, because it was a great idea, and it'll help everybody.
Well, the momentum is clearly there. We've clearly passed the tipping point, and the velocity and the momentum is clearly there. People are going to want to take that percentage of their value and put it to good work, to service, to the greater good. It's happening.
Yeah, it's fantastic stuff. Look, Holly, thank you very much. We're gonna move on now, but stay on, because the guest that we've got on next is actually someone whose project I just discovered from what Hope put in the chat is actually part of the Fix the World gallery of projects. And that gentleman's name is Don Hunt, and the project name is Eduan. And are you with us there, Don?
Yes, I am.
How are you today, and welcome?
I'm fantastic, and I am also honored to be amongst all of the people here.
Well, it is actually an honor to have you. When I read the amount of work you guys have done, kind of paralleling what Trevor's doing, but not. Paralleling other things, but not. I mean, every time you look at these projects, no two are quite the same. And what I'll do is I'll pull in Hope right here and now to tell us what she knows about Eduan. Don't forget to unmute, Hope.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Don. It's so nice to meet you, actually, because I have to say that Val and Angela would love to say hello, and they're shouting out from the Fix the World Projects Department. So what I know that Eduan, let's see, what it stands for is putting you back in the Garden of Eden, and that, for me, really symbolizes that they're doing so much. It's such a beautiful community there. Different ways of growing food, sustainability. I think I even saw that you had some sweat lodges as well. But I can't do it justice to talk about the project as well as Don could. So, But I just would like to say that I feel honored to be able to represent Eduan in any way that I possibly can to try to help promote the word and get it out there, because you definitely are fixing our world. You're part of this beautiful movement.
Thank you.
Now, just before we start the conversation proper, I'll just point everybody to the Eduan website. It's www.eduen.org, so you can take a look at it while we're chatting with Don. So, Don, do you want to give us a little historical look at Eduan, where it came from?
Sure. Let me start back with a summer of about 1969. In San Diego, I was a teenager. I had the opportunity to grow a little garden in the backyard of my parents' home. My dad gave me $2 worth of seeds and a bag of steer manure. And I grew so much that I had to get bags and walk around the neighborhood and find out who would love to have fresh-grown stuff. And amazingly, the whole neighborhood took it. And I realized the feeling I had at that time. I worked a little hard in the garden, and I was able to feed all the vegetables my family could eat for a whole summer, plus 2 blocks worth of neighborhood that I lived in from that one little garden. As I got a little older, I became a general contractor, and I learned a lot about construction. I had seen a movie years ago called Logan's Run. Not the theme of the movie about being Sandmen and people's lives ending up at 30, but the fact that they were living in a society where there were servo mechanisms. Nobody had to work if they didn't want to, or they worked a job they really loved. And everybody got about. They didn't have to worry about food because there was plenty of it. Didn't have to worry about housing. Everybody had the same opportunity. I watched that movie 14 times. Then I went and got the book and read it. Then I went to the movie house and I got the poster. I was lucky enough to take the poster off the guy. And I'd sit back at night and I'd think about when I went to Disneyland and how right within that little park you had all the nice amenities, nice hotel, transportation, everything was updated, everything was perfect. There was plenty of food. But when you go home, after paying for that expensive trip, you go back to your budget. If you have enough to buy groceries, if you have enough to buy clothes, you certainly don't have a monorail running through your town or people movers. And as I got older, I began to help Eduan as a webmaster. And I got to meet the project, the very early principal partners. And through time, I ended up being that project manager. While I had worked with them, since I spent the first year building that budget, I had to project what it would cost to operate and open up specific projects. I learned a lot about what Eduan was about, what it would cost. Since I was a general contractor, I already knew what it would take to put the things together. I knew how many people it would house. I knew how many people it would provide jobs for. Eduan, over that span of 20 years, will provide millions of jobs globally, just in that small 20-year project with that small budget. My old son David used to be a home refurbisher, and at one time we spoke about building a community together. We talked about the fire station, the doctor's offices, the grocery store, and all the various things that proponents it would take, and providing better homes for people. And at some point, the banks cheated him. He was on a timeline where if he didn't deliver fast enough, and the real estate market tumbled, they took most of everything he had away from him and left him broke. I've been asked what it would take to take the Eduan Ecological Teaching Centers and Healing Center and put it into the size of a community that would be a city. And I've already begun to plan that. Imagine the media within a city that can be broadcast intranet throughout the entire city, protected, full transparency and purity of broadcast, no interference from outside, nothing cutting into the transmission, and no subliminal news messages from the forces that were. Go ahead.
Don, how big a team do you have working on the overall management of this project?
We have 20 people listed. We have 200 professionals not listed, but we have the section on the bottom of the website that talks about them. And there are literally thousands of people that can be brought into it instantly. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things we spoke about before the show, which is starting to become not so much an issue, but a factor that we all need to take into account, is that Don has project managed this thing very, very precisely. Is what I'm reading. There's a whole lot of different aspects to it. There's a whole lot of planning in each aspect, and as a whole, it looks really solid from an organisational structure. But one of the really good things that they've done is they have designed it so that if they get a trickle of funding, it might take 20 years. If they get better funding, it'll be 10. And if they get large funding rapidly, Don, what did you tell me you could get most of the stuff set up? What sort of time frame, if you had a lot of funding, how long would it take you to really kick along?
If you look at what happened with Disneyland was built in 1 year with $1 million. 14 years later, they built Disneyland in Orlando, Florida, and it cost $14 million to do that. So time and labor, everything jumps the price of something. I believe if I had adequate funding, I could do the entire planet in 2 years.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And I'm already building the master list for the appropriate staff.
Now, Scott, you're a professional project manager, something that most of the audience wouldn't be aware of, but that's one of the, apart from being a licensed ship's captain, how much work is involved in that kind of project management from your perspective?
There's so many different levels you can look at it. There's the nuts and bolts on the ground kind of management of it. There's the high-level strategic planning, the sort of whiteboard discussion to show executives. There's a whole different raft of levels at which you can plan it. And then there's not only just the planning, but there's the implementation, the reporting, and the control aspects of it. So it's a pretty involved task, and yet they can be simplified down to certain bullet points. So it's a big job.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is, Don. So what facilities do you have on the ground at this point in time? What's actually in use? Have you got anything actually operating satisfactorily from your point of view?
Well, imagine the early disciples would go and heal people and talk about Scripture to people, home to home, group to group, and they'd find places for people to stay. Right now, Patrick, who is one of the principals, is in Phoenix helping a addict get off of their addiction and return their health. We don't have a physical facility anymore. We lost that because the funding didn't happen, and we had what was an old nursery, a very large one, where the home office was going to be built in Gresham, Oregon. Mm-hmm. And because things didn't go through, all the people that were staying there had to go find homes to live in. Economics has been terrible. Patrick, for 20 years, ran a sugar detox center. Denise Martin ran that sugar detox center with him. I have taken people off of sugar. I've also healed myself of cancer. I've taken pain out of my legs from diabetes. There's a lot of things I've done with and for myself. And I have had the privilege of people who listen to me come back from stage 4 brain cancer and find their perfect health again. What we know as individuals is endless. What we can do as a group is phenomenal. Imagine what Hope knows, what I know, and what the gentlemen in Australia and Canada know who are doing these same kinds of facilities. If we networked together, got our heads together and talked about what our plans are, what would happen?
Well, we've seen what happened with Hope in one day. And if the people really stand and really push this, it'll make the Berlin Wall look like a little line in the sand. That we do know, Don.
Well, something I'd like to mention to Don and everybody else, too, is that part of the platform that Fix the World is building and ready to release as soon as we possibly can, which I'm hoping is real soon, is to create the platform for projects like Dawn so that people can give to these projects. And what happened with me can happen with Dawn and all of the other projects as well, because it really is up to the people to fund these projects for the people.
I'd like to add something to what Hope just said. I'm in no better shape than she is. And I find that even the principals who started this idea, the ones who had the benevolent idea of fixing the world, they're in no better shoes than I. And I have to sit back and wonder, how is it that those who want to give the most have the least and are being put through some of the most arduous of life circumstances? It's a horrible thing to see those who can do the most good be put to the test, like Hope and myself and Patrick and Denise. There has to be light at that end of the tunnel, and pardon me, I'm getting a little emotional.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people we need to help. There's a lot of people starving. There's a lot of people who've lost their homes. Things need to change soon.
They do need to change soon. Absolutely, Don. And if you could get funding right now, what's the first thing you guys would do? What's the very first project that you'd bring onto line?
I would bring onto line a home office in the Pacific Northwest. I would ask that Hope and the people in Australia, I've spoken to some of those who are building the same kind of communities, Morpheus, I'd ask them all to come and have council meetings with me and change of knowledge. I know how to heal people with food. I know what makes disease. And I haven't got into the magic things of marijuana, some of those things we can't touch yet. I've been able to do it just with the few things I know. So there's things they know that I don't. I know things happened in Morocco that I found quite miraculous. We all have a little piece of the puzzle. When we put that puzzle together, we have a great mural.
It's an incredible mural, Don, actually, and it's the imminence of it is what's really taking my breath away. Just the things that have happened in the last week, the things that will happen in the next week. There's every chance that in a couple of weeks' time we'll be having a completely different conversation. And it'll be, as Hope said, we need to make sure we have our eye on how we're going to use these resources that become available. And you've already got one of the biggest plans I've ever seen mapped out in detail, which is brilliant because we can bring all that expertise to bear immediately. We don't have to sit down and do 10 years planning, which is what you guys have done. And Trevor's done, and so many other people around the world.
That's so anybody that wants to draw on those documents and learn a little bit more can. Mm-hmm. Daryl has been talking about funding for a while with me, and at first my website was designed with a corporate feel and look, and I've changed that to where it's all completely gone. But I knew when I built that big pharma, big oil, big banks were going to resist. So we had to find our funding elsewhere. Funny enough, I realized that early on some of the benevolent funders out there weren't as benevolent as I thought. I believe the government of Italy was at one time going to finance Eduan, and it fell through. I'm glad it did. Can you imagine being somehow tied to that?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that they do. In fact, it's a game they play with people who are creating free energy devices or communities like this. They promise funds and then actually withdraw them at the last minute under various guises. It's simply a means of pulling the energy out of the project. It's an energetic trick to actually create energy amongst the group of people executing the project and then pull it out from underneath them.
We would start off with solar, hydro, and wind power to power the city, and it would be off the grid. Mm-hmm. But we have some engines. One's called the Noble Gas Engine. I can't tell you the ingredients in the gas, but there's no tailpipes, no fuel consumption. We've already had a 300,000-hour test on the engine. If we put this into practice in the city, it will power the entire city. It won't cost a penny.
There are so many different flavors of free energy devices. It is staggering as soon as you start to look at it. And the energy chat rooms that have sprung up, the websites that have sprung up, the PES Wiki website, they are packed full of different styles of free energy devices. Any one of which, if it went large scale, would completely change the whole financial structure, because one of the aspects of free energy is that it has as much potential to shift the financial system as does Heather's oncoming process, because it'll actually shift the power back into the hands of the people, freeing them from the system, but at a physical energetic level rather than at a currency resources energetic level.
I just think that bears repeating. We need to say that one more time. If you put that into a city, it would power the entire city, and it wouldn't cost a penny. And just
not only that, but
trickle effect.
With all the right equipment. And early on, the principal partners, Denise and Patrick, argue, well, they liked M Water from Michael the chiropractor. Then they liked Aquarius Water. I met a friend who was at a university, Johns Hopkins University, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for discovering the aquaporin. The aquaporin is that little vein going through each cell wall where hydration takes place, one cell at a time, right behind each other. Millions of cells of water molecules of water filing into that cell to hydrate it. That is how hydration takes place. So when you hear of this oxygenated water, it's BS. When you hear of this multiple cluster spun water, it's BS. You take regular water from any source, you alkalinize it by distilling it. Then you put it through a alkalizer, which draws the pH up, and you drink that, and you're drinking a primordial water that heals the body. You can add additives to it. You can add minerals if you want. You can add flavor if you want. You can put into it anything you want, but the alkalinization of that water is the critical part. And being pure water, distilled water, is the other critical part. Starting off with an empty house with nothing in that water, alkalinizing it, bringing it to the pH, and then it heals the body. A body normally sits around 7.0 pH. You drink a soda pop that's 2.5 pH, it draws the body down to acid, and all kinds of disease can start in your body. But the closer you get to 7 or above it, every tenth of a point up that way is 100 times more oxygen in your cells. That's what fights disease. That's what fights illness and recovery of your body.
Yeah, look, there's so many simple principles which, if they were actually put out widely, would reduce the rate of disease across the planet.
Correct.
And yet that information is withheld again and again and again. But I'm trying to avoid too much of this discussion of information withheld and speculation about reasons for it. If, for instance, we could build a free energy device which was a self-powered distiller, just putting that item alone out there would make a huge difference. If you could give one to every household so they could distill their own water and alkalize it at the same time, self-powered with a free energy device.
That's what Eduan will do.
And
you don't have to go to the store to buy it. You'll have it at your house.
That's it. It'll just be part of your, if you like, the assistance that you actually receive from the community itself, from the resources of the community itself. And this gets back to the discussion at the start of the show, where Hope dipped into that incredible current of goodwill, just a little bit, just a bit, and look what happened. And it's everybody's hope, not just my hope, everybody's hope, that we all are in a position to actually freely dip into that incredible energy that's generated when everyone goes into a state of joy and realizes that we never needed the governments that we have. We never needed any of the shackles they placed on us. All we need is to help each other.
Correct.
Indeed. Reena and Scott, do you have any questions for Don?
No, I was actually scribbling notes down, which is good. I can certainly speak to the aspect about the water and the pH level from my research when I was digging around about breast cancer. And yeah, each point of a pH level is that exponential increase in the amount of oxygen available in the bloodstream, essentially. It's amazing what a difference that makes. And you think of all of the things that draws our level of pH down with all the soda pops and sugars and coffees and all of that sort of stuff. There's not a whole lot of foods that are pushed in terms of what you see advertised that are increasing your pH level. So, no, dead keen to see some of those get out there, and also some of those energy projects.
Eduan has a pretty high standard. Our standard is living foods, medicinal grade foods, and that's what we intend to provide for the world. And I'm not just talking about the city. I will make sure that it's packaged and distributed out to places that are not affected within the first few months. It takes a certain season to grow the crops, but when they're grown and it's a large enough crop, it doesn't have to be hoarded. This whole world needs to eat, and needs to eat healthy. Robust, vibrant health is everybody. It belongs to everybody, not just a few.
Hope, how many projects like Eduan, on the scale of Eduan, do you have recorded in your Fix the World project?
Oh, on the scale, well, a total we have, I think, about 50 plus projects now. But on the scale of Eduan, just a handful, maybe 3 or 4. Couldn't tell you off the top of my head exactly the number, but they're coming. They're coming. Like every day, we've got more projects coming in, and I just want to say that the wonderful thing about having Don on is we're talking about this is for everyone, and everybody does deserve health. You know, being free and healthy, and the solutions are there. They already exist. You know, projects like Eduan they've created the plans. They have the answers and the solutions. They're already implementing them. They're right there, and they already exist, and they're waiting for us to grab them and support them.
That is correct. So, Don, on your Eduan website, do you actually have a donate button or a crowdsourcing exercise going? What's currently?
No, you can donate to it at webmaster@comservco.com. I'll type it in the window, and then you can put it on chat.
I'll put it on the chat. Yep.
That
would be good. We just need to make sure you guys keep running until such time as we can really get access to some decent resources.
That's on PayPal.
Yep, so you can do a PayPal donation with this, which is webmaster at comservco.com, COMMSERVCO.com. Great stuff. Now, Holly, you're very interested in these communities. Do you have any questions for Don?
I commend you. Having been involved in the raw food community, I know what you're doing has great value. Once we get healthy minds, we get a lot healthier being and doing.
Yes, and I can tell you that there are a lot of people who think they're healthy, but when they start eating living foods, they're going to find a whole new level of health. My intention is to go to rest homes and send those people home.
Exactly.
One of the things Patrick used to do, he worked at a rest home. He thought, since he knew a lot about sugar detox, he knew a lot about recovery of the body, he would sneak all the people in there out for a long walk, get them exercise. Most of them are sitting in chairs in front of a TV or laying in their bed at these places. Come out and exercise and get them healthier. Some of them went home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One of the things that Patrick said that drove his heart to do Eduan was that he wanted to leave this planet a better place for his children. One of the things I did before I moved to Tucson, Arizona, was I turned the backyard of my home in Castle Rock, Washington, into a little mini Eduan. And then I gave it to my son when I left. And Patrick thought that was quite noble. And he said, that is exactly what we need to see happen with Eduan. He talked about taking the profit from Eduan. When we were talking about being a for-profit entity, and when we had to find farmers that didn't have the crew to run their operation and they weren't up to Eduan standards, we would say, here's more money. We need to hire these extra farmers, and here's money to buy the proper stuff to make that soil what it needs to be to grow that standard of food. So we were already thinking of improving the world. We weren't thinking about profit. We were thinking of making the world grow a better place. So that needs to happen.
Yeah, so there's so many projects that are formed on that basis. They're simply not and never were for profit. They only ever were for the greater good.
Correct.
And that is the magnet for the energy that we're talking about. That is what will make it work. It's been one of the reasons why some of the free energy technology has failed to reach the marketplace, because greed got introduced into the equation at some point between either the investors or the inventors. They're both to blame on that score. That has probably been its greatest problem. But as soon as you go back to a model where you're simply putting out the technology for everybody to use, free of profit, free of encumbrance, once that starts to happen, and I expect that to happen any tick of the clock, that is one of the things that will turn on the tap for everybody. Because that is something that can't be stopped.
When our education with our children starts with the truth, when we tell our child that candy bar you're sticking in your mouth is not good for you, it's gonna tear down the cells of your body, it's gonna weaken your pancreas, and eventually it's gonna lead to diabetes. They're gonna think about that. When I was working at the schools, I had children help me at lunchtime when I'd go around to pick up the trash cans at the school I was working at. And this one kid had about 20 candy bars in his back pocket, and about every 5 seconds he was pulling one out and eating it. And I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "This is my lunch." I said, "Your mom bought you those?" He said, "You're darn right she did." I said, "I wouldn't eat nothing else but it." And I thought, wow, this mom is letting this kid eat this much candy, this much sugar for his lunch at school. That kid needed some help. It wasn't my place to do it, but he needed some help.
He did.
With educating starting at young, with the media not being subliminal with its messages of what we should do with our lives, teaching us how to do things, this whole world is going to change. Schools are going to change. Health and the vibrance of this nation is going to change. Our pineal glands are going to decalcify. We're all going to be more emotional people. One of the things Patrick told me about when he was planting in the gardens early on, he was living right out of the garden, fresh every day, was his body got so healthy that the Pleiadians started talking to him.
Yeah.
And the first time he told me, I chuckled, but in this last year of my life, and remember, this is a mainstream fundamental pastor going from that thinking, that religious of a background, to one of, I know I'm a star child along with the rest of us, a light bearer along with the rest of us. And I know my mission here on earth, and what I'm planted for, right, this very job, this very embodiment. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know my purpose. Yeah. I pray everybody else gets to learn that for themselves.
As do we all, Don, because that really brings the truth into focus for at a personal level, and that just it permeates everything you do from that point onwards. Don, we're going to have to wrap up the discussion for the moment here, but we will have you back on again to talk in a bit more detail about some of the project work and how it would actually work on the ground. Thank you for a great introduction to your project. As the girl said, kudos to all of your colleagues and yourself for all the work you've done for how long now? 12 years?
Well, working on year 12 right now.
Yep, brilliant stuff. So, Don, thank you so much. Thank you for dropping by, and we'll see you next time. Any other closing comments, guys?
Don, I just have to say that the way you expressed yourself and told everybody about your project was so eloquent and so perfect, and I want everybody to know that I'm getting all kinds of private messages on Skype and on Facebook that are commenting on the things that Don has said about everything. And there's a lot of support. So just kudos to you and the incredible work that you've done, because it's part of what's going to change our world, and you're part of that shift. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Okay.
Thanks, Don.
Yep.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don.
That was just great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right now, we've just got about six minutes to go. Let me just check accurately here. Just under 5 minutes to go. We actually have Jerry Jones with us, our resident poet, who's written a new poem for us. Welcome, Jerry. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you. Good to hear all of you. Everybody's doing, by the sound of things.
Everyone is doing. Jerry, let's jump straight to the poem so we don't run out of time right at the end, as we normally do. Try and avoid that.
Yep. Well, here it is. The people stand as one. The people of Earth stand as one. Liberation of humanity has now begun. Each one of us is happy, joyful, and free to do what we do and to be who we be. We stand tall and we each have a voice to speak from our hearts, and we also have choice to express our true selves while living in community. We are self-spirit beings, but we live in unity. We are the one people, but we are each unique. We all have a purpose. This we must seek. When we are in harmony, we are so strong, just like the beauty of harmonious song. We know what is right. We know what is fair. We understand respect, and we are aware that when we work together in cooperation, we remain in harmony with good vibration. We agree to use our common sense and common courtesy, and we condense our laws to simple common law. Do no harm, and love will soar.
Wow.
Jerry?
Thank you.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
Thank you. It touched on what you said earlier about finding your purpose, and that's what we're all here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's come out of this is that, what Don said when he was talking about, finding your purpose. And I think if we really search, the answer is not really that complicated. Our purpose is each other.
Mm. And that's why we have Reena on the show. Thank you, Reena. Very nice. Look, we're coming down. Look, Jerry, thank you so much. I don't want to put pressure on you, but Palm every week would be great, because they are such fun. They're really great. So hopefully we'll see you again next week. We've got a couple of minutes to go. There's been a lot of information in this show. We've had a lot of people through it. It's been really excellent. And I'd just like to pull in each of our hosts now just to give any summary comments while we've got a couple of minutes. And we'll start off with Reena, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, so I'll just expand on that last bit, I think. I think, what really came out of when I was listening to Don talking, what really dawned on me for a moment is that is our purpose. I mean, as people say, what are we here for? That's what we're here for. We're here for each other. And, the answer is so simple that it's almost easy to reject, but that really is the answer. We're here for each other.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Scott?
Well, I think summing up, we've had a pretty awesome show with Hope's report, the Opal Global Village with Lake Conjola. We've had the introduction of Reena. We've got that the positive news coming out with Holly with the IUV website, and then with Project Eduan. The whole lot's all on the same theme. It's all positive all the way through, and we haven't even spoken about any negative stuff. It's been brilliant.
Love it. Love it. Thanks, Scott. Hope, any closing comments for today?
It's just a great show, and I just want to say thank you to all of humanity for being and doing and for helping me. And I want to say to Don, I just told him we have to get Eduan up on our platform as soon as possible to give the people the opportunity to fund it, because this is for all of us. And hopefully we can get that platform out this week.
Well, that would be brilliant. I guess now you've got a little bit of funding just to make that happen right when it's needed. Right when it's needed.
People wanted it, so we will deliver.
Yep. Beautiful. Okay, about 20 seconds to go. I just want to say thank you for a really great show. Thank you to all of the people in the chat room, all of the listeners, all of the podcast listeners, everybody out there. There's a couple of callers. We'll keep the stream going and take a couple of calls, so they'll appear on the podcasts. If you guys can hang around, we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so now we're on the podcast, and if you guys have got a couple of minutes, we'll take a couple of calls. Okay, because they've been waiting all the show with their hands up. And hi, area code 503. How are you? Hello, area code 503. It's probably someone just listening, so we'll try area code 218.
Chris.
Hello. Yes.
Hey, Chris. Can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you. Yes. How are you today?
I'm great. Is there an echo, or am I good on speakerphone?
You may have. I don't know. You may have. Have you got the web page running as well?
I have the sound off.
Yeah.
I can go off
Okay. That's okay. Did you have a question for us? We can hear you fine, and there's no echo on the line, so.
Okay. I'm fine then too. Well, it's just a perfect. Thank you for going over. It's too perfect. Wow, everything is so synced up perfectly from what Don was just talking about, from what I was calling about. It's kind of crazy. Don is my father's name, and I have been an executive raw food chef, and I have been involved with distributing organic food to low-income people in Minneapolis for free with an organization that's been around since 1997. And I don't know which way to go.
Look, it sounds like you're already probably doing what you came here to do.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to give a template for, there's an organization in Minneapolis called Citrus Camelot, and we've been picking up organic food from warehouses here since the late 90s and going into low-income neighborhoods and giving it away to people for free. I've been a volunteer since 1999. I've kind of just been on the local foods, food empowerment, getting rid of food deserts movement myself for a long time. I've been doing this kind of work for 20-plus years on a variety of levels. I've had brief correspondences with Lisa and Brian about wanting to talk to you or just getting on a show at some point. I've been listening for a long time and involved with these kind of activities for decades, essentially. So,
well, there's going to be a show sometime in the next month or so about food and food production, and
okay, great.
In the face of a rapid shift, how do we manage food production? What's going to be the most efficient way to do it? So that's a different issue to, not a different, but it's an additional issue to what sort of food should we be eating, regardless of any shifting going on or things
right.
happening at very high levels. What should we be doing? And Don's touched on this with removing sugar from the diet, eating raw food.
Absolutely. Yeah, I found that to be. Is that mine? What's that mean? Hello?
Yep, I can hear you. There's something playing in your background there.
What's that mean?
That's probably the.
Hold on.
That was you, Don, was it?
Not sure.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway, but I've on a personal level, I've been doing a lot of the same work that Don's been doing. I've been healing people with what he says about sugar is totally accurate. I developed a hypersensitivity to even like natural fruit sugars over the last few years, and that's just something that most people are really addicted to, and they're not even aware of it. There's like I said, I've worked with individuals in that sense, but tried to bring that from my professional culinary background as being a chef out of the pay for the information, pay for the healing world, and trying to get more onto the production and distribution aspect. And it was cool when you mentioned about big corporate or banking sponsors pulling the rug out from underneath proposals like this at the last second, because I just recently experienced that this year with something that I put a lot of sweat equity into, and a whole bunch of other people put a lot of effort into, and it went right up to the last minute with plugging in some Hmong subsistence farmers, huge communities in the Twin Cities areas who have a lot of cultural barriers with the mainstream Euro culture, and plugging them into their organic practices into the buying communities in the Twin Cities for organic produce. And we just had that experience where the money just disappeared right at the last second.
That's what they do. They just they put it in front of you, and like magic, they make it go away.
Really disheartening.
And
a lot of people jumped ship.
What city do you work in?
Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Minneapolis, okay. And there's probably projects like Eduan forming in every city in the United States at the moment, and probably the best thing that you could do is try and track down some of those projects through Fix a Well Project, or through Don on the panel here may be able to point at something in Minneapolis that's already going on. Some of your expertise, but I mean a more comprehensive project, a complete community, in the sense of something that could ultimately be self-sustainable, and your expertise in food. Do you grow food as well?
For myself, Minneapolis is kind of a hub. I mean, there's people with chickens in my neighborhood right in the middle of the city, so it's happening all over the place here.
Excellent.
But sisterscamelot.org, I just wanted to plug the organization because we've been feeding people who can't afford organic food for free since 1997, and we're kind of about ready to go under right now. We're losing our warehouse space where we keep our buses, and we just had a lot of financial turmoil, and we're going to keep going until we don't have money to put gas in the bus anymore to go pick up the food. But it's an institution here. We already have the infrastructure. We've already made meals for city council members and the mayor of Minneapolis. So these templates exist. In a lot of places around the country, it's illegal to feed people food the way we do it. You can go to jail for that.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding at all. That's kind of standard practice
ridiculous.
in the United States. It's really common in the United States. Feeding homeless people is a crime in many areas in the United States. You can be fined and essentially picked up for that. I've seen it happen in Florida before.
I know what you're talking about too. There's a lot of businesses and restaurants that have leftover food that would like to feed the homeless with it, and they're not allowed to.
Right. There was a big controversy with Trader Joe's last year where some punk kids did a documentary about them putting locks on their dumpsters and spraying water all over all their food and stuff so that poor people couldn't get the food out of the back of the warehouses anymore at Trader Joe's. But that's neither here nor there. But I just wanted to say that, this kind of thing could be exported. I almost moved to Portland this fall to try to start a second. There's no other organization doing this that we know of anywhere to the same level of organization 2 or 3 times a week like we do it. But it's really easy. It doesn't take a lot. All you basically have to do is get the community involved and on board and accepting it. And most places are down for feeding the homeless, even though maybe law enforcement isn't, but the community members would be up for that. You just kind of got to get to the warehouse, pick up the produce that, not talking about garbage stuff that's going straight to the landfill, but things that are, the new shipments coming in, so they don't need that anymore. How we work in Western industrial nations. We have so much excess, so much abundance that we throw away and plow under every day while we have people starving. So it's really, really easy and does not take very much to harvest that food essentially and salvage it and hand it out to people who would never be able to afford it otherwise, especially on the organic front.
Yeah, do you have a website?
SistersCamelot.org. Sisters like my sisters are my sisters. SISTERS. And then Camelot.
Camelot.
Camelot, like JFK, Camelot, Arthur and the King's Court. CAMELOT.
.org. That's for people. That's for people who want to volunteer or donate some funds. They can do it at that website.
We take volunteers 2 to 3 days a week, and there's a donate button, and we can. Hopefully, I've kind of been trying to spearhead to. We've been talking about how we need to, even as we've been kind of folding financially. We've been talking a lot about how we need to export what we've pretty much mastered here in the Twin Cities since '97, and it needs to happen elsewhere, and it just doesn't take very much to go get the food from the warehouse and hand it out to people. It's really simple.
Yeah, well, see, that's something that can be done instantly. When more resources are available, expanding that model out to other cities in the United States would be a very, very simple thing to do, and would take care of this lack of food for homeless people or for people who've been trashed by the system. That's one of those things that would just work instantly.
I just want to add to that, if I could.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to add to that, if I could. I think what would be useful is to actually garner the resources of the community. So those who can't necessarily donate any funds, they could perhaps donate some time to volunteer. They could perhaps, if they've got warehouse space or, space somewhere where they could offer you the space to actually store the goods. So donations of all kinds of things I think would be helpful. Would that sort of sit with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are working on trying to secure some temporary stopgap storage for the 2 buses. We have one bus that actually just hands out the fresh produce. We just hand out fresh produce. And the other bus actually produces meals and teaches people how to cook with fresh produce who don't have very much experience with it. A lot of low-income people don't, I'm one of them, and I grew up that way, and I never was taught how to cook. I didn't know how to cook anything. Everything came out of the microwave and came out of plastic and cans and whatnot. So we have 2 different buses running in 2 different operations that we're trying to find storage for right now. But what you said is totally accurate. We are networking, and we have allies on the city council of Minneapolis, and like I mentioned, the mayor knows who we are, and yada yada. But so we're just. I wasn't really trying to solicit funds. I just wanted to let you know the template's out there, and if anybody wants to talk to us about how to do it and have a good time and bring a lot of hope and energy, and people bless us all day long, every day when we're handing out food to them, and it feels really good.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Look, one of the things we can do is put out a call on these radio shows for warehouse space for your buses, if that's your immediate problem, if that's the thing that's going to cause you grief. And we'll
just let volunteers to keep it running, but we just need a modicum of money to keep gas in the buses, and then we're losing our storage warehouse space at the end of July. Mm-hmm. We don't have the rent to pay for the next month, so that is the biggest. We can figure out how to get gas in the buses, I'm sure. Hopefully, it's kind of expensive to fill a gas tank in a bus, but that is the biggest issue: is storage of the buses right now. Thank you.
Okay, if you could put a note onto what's the most convenient place to get us the information probably onto Hope's Facebook page.
Okay, I'll do that.
Just put a few details so we can give the name of your organisation and a contact point, and just say these guys are looking. They've created a system where they're actually passing on food to the homeless, and their buses require storage. They're going to lose their storage. They want to keep working. They also need a bit of funding for petrol to keep the whole system going. We'll put a shout out for you, and we'll let the universe answer, because you guys are doing great work, and I just know you'll get the answer.
Thank you.
Just got to put it out there.
Thank you for taking calls after 9, because I'd been on for a while, and it seemed so perfect because of what Don was talking about was such a perfect segue. I was like, I gotta get on tonight. I gotta get on tonight.
Yeah, well, you'll get onto people will hear you on the podcast, and we'll make sure your message gets out about needing these extra resources to keep this service going, because it's a service to the community, and it's for the highest good. Why wouldn't we keep it going?
Yeah, we want to take it worldwide. I mean, we know that great food gets thrown away 24 hours a day all over the planet. 24 hours a day. So that's right. And even in this transition time, that will still occur, and it can still be leveraged for great effect, for very little cost, effectively. Why would you want to waste money on, paying the government, giving government tax money? Yeah, they're supposed to throw it away.
Not only that, they're actually supposed to look after these people in the streets, and they do not.
Right.
So it's up to us, as came up earlier in the show. We're here to help each other. So let's do it. It's
so
exactly
I'm honored.
What you've been doing.
Thank you, Hope. I just want to tell you I'm honored to be on the phone with you. Finally, I've been listening. I've been following all the stuff I've been following your shows for a while, and I've been working on the stuff underground behind the scenes for a long time, and I really appreciate your time and to talk to you and Hope and Scott. The other host is first week. I don't have your name yet. I'm sorry. What's your name?
It's Reena.
Reena, thank you.
Rena. Yep.
Don't even try and say my last name.
I think that's why I was nervous. I thought that was your first name.
No.
So the other note for a future show, I'll call in next week. I've been trying to figure out what show to call into, but I would like to have some kind of conversation started about people like myself who have been sort of in battle mode and in the trenches for long periods of time, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, like myself, to try to basically overthrow the dark corporate oligarchy energies, and how we are repurposing ourselves to be more in like a lighted observer mode and be more like water and use Aikido in our daily lives and all of our interactions. And to not necessarily, we think that we have to overthrow and combat and defeat our, what were our enemies, what we perceive as our enemies for so long.
Exactly. Well, at an energetic level, at a practical level, as far as networking and getting the message out about how to do this and trying to garner more resources, this is the best show to call into. For talking at that energetic level, the collective imagination would be the best venue for that, because the lesson we're really learning, the lesson that we keep coming to in the end, is that at some point, when we recognize that battling the system is exactly what they want us to do, because they're set up to repel that, we just build the new around them, and they'll simply either be absorbed into it themselves or disappear, either of which is fine. But it's not a battle, it's building something new. That's what we really have to shift our mind to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you battle them, they just absorb your energy, so they actually use the energy that you're putting out there
back on you. Yeah.
Back on you, absolutely. So they absorb it. And so, I think the best thing to do is to just, ignore them and build around them and, get communities to do their own thing and make them totally irrelevant.
Yes.
If you fear them, you give energy to them, and they grow from that. If you don't give into that energy, for the fear porn they put out, it just goes away.
Yeah, very true. Right. So, collective imagination, because the amount of calls, we can take. Sorry. Could I have your name again?
It's Dan.
Dan.
I messaged. I talked to Brian and Lisa. I was talking to Lisa about which show I should call into, because I have a lot of experience in a lot of the things you guys talk about.
Yeah,
so this was good to talk about this component, but the other component I think is just, I realize people who have basically put their lives on the line to get us to this point where we had the opportunity to leave the battle behind and to talk to them and to appreciate them and to cherish them and to honor all the work that they did, even though right now we can say, well, you were just feeding that energy. But at the time we were fighting for our lives and what we thought was to save humanity. essentially.
Yeah.
So,
well, look, no, it's simply this whole thing is a learning process, and it's part of the lesson we had to learn in order to move out of this situation we're in into the other. There's no judgment there, Dan, none at all. It's what was.
I'm sorry. I didn't imply that there was. I'm sorry if I did.
But some people do judge themselves, or they feel judged, and I just wanted on the record that no, there's no judgment there, and there's also, we have to really mitigate our judgment of our partners in contrast, as we come to call them, because they're just playing a role as well when you look at it from that higher level. But they're still embroiled in the game, and they're supposed to have stepped away by now. That's the problem we've got. They don't want to let go, so it's time just to build around them rather than continue that game.
So all the work that you've done and all the messages you've given to all of us, I'm extremely grateful, and a lot of you have played a huge role in my transition over the last couple of years into, I still consider myself to be a warrior, but just not so, I'm just redefining myself every day and taking those principles that we just discussed and that you just mentioned about leaving it behind, transcending, becoming detached from the people who are trying to oppress you. Sometimes they get right up into your business, and it's really hard to just walk away from them when, they're trying to put your hands behind your back, but and you're not asking for it. But, those kind of conversations, I think, is what a lot of people like myself who have done that kind of activity and that kind of work would like to hear just a little bit more conversation about. I don't want to get obviously I don't want to get sucked into the polarity conversations, but there are millions of us. I mean, all the people protesting in the street are out there getting their heads bashed in, So, we're looking at Egypt as an example of what can be done in the world, and everybody's talking about that online and in light worker land about look at Egypt, but people are getting killed over there, So. Yep,
they are indeed, and it just.
So what is the model ultimately that we want to use to hopefully avoid that?
Well, I'm not really sure what the model is, but I know what the model isn't, and that is what hasn't worked in the past. And right. I don't think protesting and that kind of thing really is the model. So I can tell you what I personally believe that the model isn't, which is protesting and holding mass rallies and that kind of thing. Simply because, that's been happening for a long time. They're set up now. They've got, the media kind of doing their part to keep all that information away from the mainstream and to, make all these people just look like troublemakers and that kind of thing. And not only that, it kind of pays energy into it. It kind of says, well, I acknowledge you. I acknowledge what you're doing, and I'm paying energy into it. And so the best thing to do is to not hold a huge rally about it. It's to think about solutions and how you can get your community on a local level to essentially make that irrelevant, replace it with your own systems. And it was what I had said earlier in the day with you, Chris, when we had spoken about this. It's about creating little spot fires just everywhere. They will eventually be a blaze that cannot be put out.
Mm-hmm. I'd just like to throw in a modified idea on what Reena's just put out. Yeah, the idea of protesting against them inevitably leads to violence. Okay.
Yes, it does.
What we don't want to have protests on the streets against anything. We want to have very large protests on the streets for what we want. Okay, so intention is we're not going there to protest the banks. We're going to go on the streets to put out to highlight the system that we want, which is, say, the universal exchange, for instance, is a good example. If we're on the streets, we're not protesting for it, but rallying for it. So just that shift in intention. So there's an enormous amount of energy in people getting on the streets. And if you get onto the streets and it gets physical and negative, then, you're straight back into the old paradigm. If we can go there and hold the space and keep a positive track on it for what we want, rather than what we don't want, then we'll get what we want. Because one of the things the Galactic Historian has been putting out strongly, this is the stuff I'm doing with Andrew Bartzis, one of the things he sees as pivotal in shifting the collective is when there's people on the streets exerting their free will. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean we're having fisticuffs with the enforcers? Hell no. It means we're putting out a positive energy that we want the banking system to shift and give us access to value, that we want world governments to step away and allow us to build communities with a smooth transition from one to the other. No shenanigans, no violence. That's what we want. So the message that we need to get out there is I do believe we have to get on the streets, but it's not. A lot of the stuff that's going on at the moment is its intent leads to direct conflict with guys who have clubs and guns, and that's not what the intent should be. It's a hard thing to shift it from one to the other because the people just don't know the alternatives yet. But that information is going to come out. That information is going to be spilling out very shortly, and my great hope is that we'll still be on the streets, but it'll be a happy occasion, and it'll be simply something that's going to completely finish the job of starting the shift. It's probably the best way to put it.
Well, we started with union movements 150 years ago. So if you could just make a note at some. I'll call in again. I'll call the Collective Imagination Show. But I just know
call
that
the Collective Imagination Show. Yeah.
A lot of my brothers and sisters are in this sort of situation, and maybe I'm just bringing them on board and introducing them to all. I mean, this is what's so genius about the whole OPPT filings, right? Of course. I mean, that's why I'm an intellectual, and I'm a strategist. And when all this stuff happened in December, I was like, this is it. I knew it. You've heard the story. A lot of people have said that. I knew it right when I heard it. This is it. Because it's not about battling on the streets, and that's what we kept doing over and over and over to no avail. That's what they wanted. What the other hosts have just alluded to. It just feeds into their energy paradigm. So that's why this is so genius, and I'm so excited about all the IUV stuff. But other people, a lot of my my contemporaries don't know about that, and they're still what they are thinking. Like they're in the struggle. They're in the struggle to the death.
Yeah.
And I don't have to forget about them. I mean, I know there's a difference now, and I'm trying to just, I'm kind
all you can do, Dan, is get the message to them where they're open to it. Some will be, and some won't be. But when the access to value goes public, when people start to find out about it, there'll be people on the streets, but it'll be a party.
Right.
It'll be a celebration, and the scene I love is the. Sorry, Dan?
We've been waiting a long time. We've been waiting to party in the streets.
Oh yeah. Do you remember the parties at the end?
For a long time.
Do you remember the scenes at the end of the Star Wars movies when they finally defeated Darth Vader? Those scenes in the big cities with all the crowds on different planets. That's what I'm holding in my head. That's what I want.
Oh my God. You're just making my hair stand up. That's a great way for me to
hold that image. Because it's a ripper. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to talk to you, Dan. We better finish because the stream will terminate soon and we'll lose the conversation. But call into Collective Imagination and we'll continue it.
Thank you so much. I'm eternally grateful.
Cheers, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
See you, Dan.
Okay. Well, for all those on the podcast, we'll finish up here now because the folks on the panel probably have things to do. But thank you very much, all of you, our guest Don, and my co-hosts Hope and Reena and Scott. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Lots of fun.
It is lots of fun and a pleasure to work with you guys. So we'll see you all next week.